Hello and welcome to episode 29 of the Crash and Ride podcast. I'm Patrick Ferguson. I'm your host. Today's guest is Stephen Cramer. Stephen founded the Dudes Helping Dudes Facebook page when he lived in Detroit. He's also the guy behind Brain Aid. Brain Aid sponsors a music festival every autumn in Athens, Georgia that focuses on mental health and mental health recovery. If this is your first episode of Crash and Ride is a long-form interview podcast where I talk to musicians who've survived anxiety, depression, addiction, and abuse. The mission of Brain Aid and the mission of Crash and Ride are pretty much the same. Let's destigmatize mental health conversations. Let's help each other get better. I am a working musician. I play drums for the band 5/8 from Athens, Georgia. I also play for the rock band from Tokyo, Pinky Doodle Poodle, when they're in the United States. And I also play with Mike Mills from REM and his side project, the Mike Mills Concerto. Mike and I have a short tour coming up with Chuck Leavell from the Rolling Stones and the Allman Brothers. We're going to play a few select southern cities. September 29th, we're playing Atlanta Symphony Hall in Atlanta, Georgia. October 2nd, we're playing the Lyric Theater in Birmingham, Alabama. October 4th, we're playing the Lucas Theater for the Arts in Savannah, Georgia. Then October 5th, we're playing the Miller Theater in Augusta, Georgia. And then I'm going to rush home and be on a panel at Brain Aid right here in Athens, Georgia. So as I'm recording this, it's been kind of a long and crazy week for people who think about sadness and depression and how that affects our lives and when people take drastic measures to end their suffering. Pastor Jared Wilson, he was the suicide prevention outreach counselor for a church in California. I wasn't familiar with him before this week, but my friend Nick Greer, who runs Greer Amplification, was, and Jared took his own life this week, which shook a lot of people pretty hard. Nick posted a long and thoughtful essay on social media about it, and I went by his shop to talk to him about it some, and I've asked Nick to come on the show at some point soon. I hope that happens. But even the people who seem to be doing the best in life are often suffering. So reach out to your friends. Check on them. No one saw this coming. It's tragic. Normally, this would be the place in the intro for the show where I read the paragraph about Nick's amplifier and pedal company, Greer Amplification. But I think more appropriately at this point, I should say, Nick is someone who really cares about the people who buy his products. Musicians are very near and dear to Nick's heart, and he does good work. He cares about his products, and he cares about you if you play music. So rather than read the essay about how great Nick's compressors and delay pedal and distortion and overdrive pedals are, I'm just going to say, go to GreerAmps.com. If you're in Athens, go by there, man. Nick's got a little room with all the amps set up and all the pedals and a bunch of nice guitars. You can sit down and play and be part of the community. Be part of Nick's world. Nick's part of yours already. I think more powerful than any advertising paragraph I could read about Nick's work, just go meet the man, shake his hand, and check out his stuff. He makes good stuff, and he cares. Crash and Ride is also brought to you in part by Jittery Joe's, a local coffee roaster based in Athens, Georgia. They've got an espresso blend called Crash and Ride that's named after the show. It's available in cans at all of their retail locations and on their website. You go to jitteryjoes.com. You can also buy it on our website, or you will be able to soon. We're in the very last stages of getting the web store set up, so I'll put that URL up very, very soon. You can also buy Crash and Ride Espresso in drinks at Hendershot's Coffee here in Athens, Georgia. Hendershot's is a musician-owned and operated coffee shop. It's run by a really, really cool guy named Seth Hendershot. He's a musician. He's a great, great drummer, and he's a really great guy. He runs a great coffee shop. Sometime later this fall, probably after those Mills dates I told you about earlier, I'm going to do a live episode of Crash and Ride at Hendershot's Coffee. I'm going to talk to Bob Sleppy, the executive director of Nucci Space. Nucci Space is a nonprofit mental health resource for musicians in the greater Athens area. They provide subsidized mental health care. If you walk in there and fill out a form and tell them you're having a tough time, they'll refer you to a mental health counselor, and it'll cost like $10 or $15 a session. We talk about that some in the interview coming up, so check that out. Nucci Space does so many good things in the Athens music community, it's hard to jam them all into one little podcast intro. But let me just say that in addition to the mental health services I just talked about, they also host physicians who come in and do like dental and hearing evaluations. You can get your teeth checked and fixed, or you can get your hearing checked. They host the Youth Rock Camp every summer where young people learn to be rock musicians, and they have a recording studio where they train young people to become recording engineers. If you want to support Nucci Space, just book some time in one of their rehearsal studios or go by their perpetual used gear garage sale. People donate equipment and they fix it up and clean it up and make it so it works perfectly. And man, I've gotten some stuff really cheap there that I use every day. If you want to support NutriSpace and you're one of those people who's fortunate enough to have some tax liability you want to offset, NutriSpace is a 501c3 nonprofit, and every donation is tax deductible. Go to nuci.org, that's nuci.org, or you can call 706-227-1515 if you have any questions about NutriSpace, or just swing by there. They serve a pretty good cup of coffee, so, it's worth your time. Just stick your head in. There is one more thing I want to say before we jump into the episode. We've seen a kind of spate of recent suicides and unexpected deaths, and I have seen some of the kind of like pontificating on social media of people saying, well, suicide is a coward's way out, or maybe taking pot shots at the recently deceased. Man, all I got to say is if you're one of those people who has those kind of thoughts in your head, maybe take 5 minutes to kind of think about what the impact of what you're going to say is going to have on people who are suffering. Have a little empathy, man. Seriously, take some responsibility. Know that your words can harm people. And maybe just button it up. I can't change what's inside your head, but man, don't put that out in the world. It's unnecessary. If you're someone who's struggling from depression and anxiety and you're contemplating self-harm, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. It's 24/7. It's confidential. It's free. They have trained volunteers to talk you through your crisis. That's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255, or go to suicidepreventionlifeline.org. If you're a trans person who's struggling with anxiety, depression, or gender dysphoria and you want to talk to a peer, you can call the Trans Lifeline's peer support line at 1-877-565-8860, or go to translifeline.org. All right, today's episode, Stephen Cramer. Stephen is he's been around Athens for about 3 years now, and Brain Aid is his foundation, and he does this music festival, and he's just a guy who's relentlessly positive about people getting better. He came out here to the house, and we sat in the living room and did an hour or so interview, and it was really, really good. Stephen is someone whose life basically fell apart, and he's patched it back together, and he's living here in Athens, enjoying how much sunnier it is than Detroit, and trying to make a difference in the world, and I'm really grateful that he came to do this. Let's jump into our interview with Stephen Cramer. All right, I'm here with Stephen Cramer, creator of the Dudes Helping Dudes Facebook page, originator of the Brain Aid Festival, which is a festival that happens here in Athens, Georgia. It's a music and art festival that takes place over a week. It's with a heavy emphasis on mental health and working with depression and anxiety and suicidal ideation. And now Stephen is also now having some focus on actual brain injury. So welcome, Stephen.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you for having me on. It's an honor.
Well, the honor is mine. When did the Dudes Helping Dudes Facebook page start?
Well, that started probably 2011 or 12. It happened at a time when I don't know if my marriage was in crisis yet, but it was. I was struggling, so I just created a group and added all my guy friends and just asked for openness and just basic advice from friends, and then it grew into a safe space, even though we don't use that term all the time. But the only rule in Dudes Helping Dudes is just be cool. Mm-hmm. And basically, I joke, if you're not sure if you're being cool, if something you're about to say, you're probably not being cool.
Yeah.
Just so there's like no bullying, no trolling. If anybody says something that's unkind or constructive criticism is fine, because when people come and say I'm dealing with this, they want outsiders' perspectives and just some help and some guidance and just basic not feeling alone, which is so easy when you're stuck in your head and your problems are your own, but and your problems are unique, but sharing your story and getting the perspective of others helps. So, yeah. And I've been told that it helps people, and that's, and I've also been told by people that, dudes who say, "Oh, I don't need any help." I'm like, but you could be the helper.
Right.
You don't have to come with problems all the time. But if you have a problem that you just need someone else's perspective, share it.
How many members on that Facebook page now?
Almost 2,000.
And there's been a fair amount of like media about it, right?
No, there's really just one piece on Vice, which was a great piece that a friend's girlfriend wrote.
Yeah.
But in general, it's just been. I would like it to grow, but it hasn't yet. But it will at some point. I would love for a men's group like Movember or some other progressive men's group that just normalize men sharing and dealing with their mental and emotional health in a healthy way.
I guess it's important though to distinguish this sort of mostly men discussion from something like the men's rights movement.
Oh yeah. Leslie from Nucci Space here in Athens, someone asked her, "Oh, is that like a anti-women or?" And she was like, "No, you obviously don't know Stephen. The reason it's men only is to create a comfort level for the men to be vulnerable in a way that they probably can't be, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Just like when women are together, there's without men in the social circle. It's just a different dynamic. That's all. Like right now, you and I have a dynamic unique to the universe,
right?
And part of it is our commonality as men. But so that's the only thing, because a lot of the men have said that they share things with the dudes that they have never shared with anyone.
Have you? Is it your impression? Has anybody ever come into the Dudes Helping Dudes community as one of these sort of men's rights doofuses and kind of come around at all?
I can't think of any examples.
Yeah, I mean, it would be such a good sort of step down.
I would hope so.
I feel like a lot of that hostile emphasis on masculinity is based out of fear.
Oh, totally.
And also just not having any real emotional life where you address your own vulnerability.
Totally. And I was surprised by one friend, or a guy who I thought was a friend. I added him to the group, and he was like, "Is this Dudes Helping Dudes, or is this teenage girls helping teenage girls?" Like, I don't know if he used the word sissy or something, some effeminate term. And I was surprised, because this guy is a progressive person in the music community, but that's fine. Everyone's journey is different. And I can't force anybody to be sympathetic and tender if they're not ready to as a person. But I can say that's not allowed in my group.
Yeah, I mean, what a poor frightened little man he must be.
Yeah,
to be that, like, to have that knee jerk hostility to people.
He also didn't like being added to the group, and I was like, "I'm sorry, I added you to the group because I thought you could benefit and I thought you could help others, but that's okay."
You can close a door or you can slam it.
Right.
You know, it sounds like he slammed it just for the extra attention.
Yeah, and that's fine. Everyone's journey is different.
Yeah. Well, that guy can fuck off. Seriously.
You might even know him, but I probably don't.
Oh, I'm sure I do.
Yeah.
We'll name names once the microphones are off.
No worries.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I remember his name at this point.
Yeah. So 2,000 members. It's grown. I remember it had a real explosion. I guess probably 3 or 4 years ago. Like there was this. It suddenly popped on my radar. I think the Vice article was part of it, but also just that someone was like, "Hey man, your voice would be appreciated here." And it wasn't you that added me; it was another member.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I've chimed in a few times. A lot of the times, you know, sometimes I thought, man, I don't know if this person who's 24 and dealing with anxiety, depression, and a rough emotional relationship necessarily needs to hear from a guy who's been married for 15 years and has kind of settled down a little bit. Like,
I think everybody can help everybody
Yeah.
from their unique perspective. Oh, and I also should say the easiest way to find the Vice article is just to go to tinyurl.com/dudes helping dudes. Made it easy.
Yeah, that's cool.
My friend taught me how to use tinyurl, and I was like, oh wow, that's amazing.
I always said Tiny Earl forever, and
Yeah.
somebody thought I was talking about a rapper, which was kind of
My name is Tiny Earl.
Yeah, exactly. That's just my Earl. Just seems that's my Southernism coming out. But
That's okay.
And then Brain Aid. How long has Brain Aid been around?
Yeah, it's a story. It's a thing which I'm proud of, but I want to be even prouder of. In 2000, just the gist of the story is in 2016, I had moved back to Detroit from Athens after a series of crises, which was my mom's death. I was laid off. I was in the hospital for Crohn's disease and an infection. I had surgery, and then my marriage was rocky, which is the reason I started Dudes Helping Dudes. But that ended in divorce, which is fine. I moved back to Detroit and started a festival that benefited my friend's suicide awareness nonprofit. But at one point, well, my Detroit depression is different than Athens depression.
Talk to me about that.
I don't know why. I don't know. We were talking about the weather earlier.
Yeah.
The cold, dreary winters are one thing, but I don't know. It was just different. It was my experience, and I just wondered to myself. I don't know if I was YouTubing or I saw something about Live Aid, and I was like, well, why hasn't there just been a simple Live Aid or a Farm Aid for mental health awareness? And I joked when I did a Rabbit Box a couple of years ago. It was like a voice in my head, which I don't hear voices. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I do talk to myself quite often, but the voice said, because you thought of it, so you have to do it. And that's just like anything, just like this podcast, right?
Right.
Every action comes from an idea, and our downfall as a species could come from people not acting on their best ideas.
Yeah.
That could help people.
Yeah.
So I moved back to Athens. I boomeranged back.
Mm-hmm.
My joke is I realized, even though I'm a Midwestern kid, I was born in Ohio, raised in Michigan, I decided I'm, for now, my best self in Athens. That could change, but I came here, formed the nonprofit, called it Brain Aid. Thought that would be a simple name, and asked my friend Ryan at Kindercore Records to do the logo based on the Live Aid logo with a brain. And I asked him to add this smiley face that my mom drew, which is a very sweet smiley face. It's where the smile is bigger than the face. the edges of the smile are outside the circle of the face.
Yeah.
I like that because I like to think of her every day. And I have a tattoo of her handwriting. I've said to many people that my mom was my mental health hero, and I value that. My journey would be different if she wasn't my mom. Obviously, everyone gets life exposure from their parents, but I think I was telling you yesterday. My mom had serious mental health challenges that were rooted in sexual trauma when she was 5.
Yeah.
And it manifested throughout the years, but she always persevered and she always tried the next thing. And she got a master's degree in therapy, and she understood that her mental health was a challenge that could be dealt with. And she never gave up. And that's one reason why I've never given up.
I want to talk to you a little bit about your early life, just to kind of contextualize your experience with your mom's mental illness. Where were you born?
I was born in Akron, Ohio in 1974. So Devo was practicing nearby.
Oh, yeah?
Probably.
I think Devo's really underrated, important band.
Oh, totally. They're completely, and I guess they were championed by David Bowie and
Neil Young too.
And Neil Young, absolutely. Like I didn't have an older brother, so I had to discover music in my own way, mostly through MTV.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems cheesy, but watching 120 Minutes and Headbangers Ball before that just exposed me.
People in music centers like Athens or New York City or LA or whatever don't realize the power that MTV had over the hinterlands. You know, that was my conduit of culture. Like I saw the band Fear on New Wave Theater on Night Flight when I was just a wee kid and was like, oh, this is important, you know. And that's how we discovered bands like the Dead Kennedys. Like we weren't driving into San Francisco from, you know, Applegate or something in California. We were out here in Georgia, and we were getting these things second and third hand via culture purveyors like cable TV. So and you can knock it, but there's no denying that that was how we found out about music then.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure how kids discover new music these days because it's in 1,000 different places.
Yeah.
But I think there is something to be said for. I was a college radio DJ. I played my favorite things. Played things that, and hopefully I introduced people to certain bands.
What college?
Oakland University.
Oberlin?
Oakland. It's actually, people often think it's Oakland, California. It's Oakland County, Michigan.
Yeah.
It originated as a part of Michigan State University, but then it became its own university in the late 50s, early 60s.
When I was a college radio DJ, there was always a record or two. You know, it would change from month to month, but there was always one or two records I was always working up to playing on my shift. And it was like whatever my favorite record was at that time. At the time that I was doing it, it was Jawbox's For Your Own Special Sweetheart.
I love Jawbox.
They're amazing. On episode 2, I interviewed Tyranny Tuff from the band The Pauses, and they've done almost all of the Jawbox reunion shows this year. I think maybe all of them as the opening band. Jay Robbins produced both Pauses full-length albums, and they're both great. Did you have a record like that when you were a college radio DJ?
I'm not sure if there's one record, but I do have a Jawbox story.
Yeah?
This was probably maybe even before I did a zine. I started doing a zine around the time I started doing college radio in '96. No, actually, well, I don't know. I wrote to Jawbox because you know, back in the day, in their CDs or cassettes or records, most bands had a PO box,
right?
But it's kind of just like when you go up to a band and say, thank you for your music. I don't even remember what I wrote. I just remember that Jay wrote back and was like, "Are you okay, man?" my 20-something depression might have seeped through, but
yeah,
I was still isolating. And I don't know. This was before I found my crew,
right?
In college radio. I'd like to say that was my fraternity with cool girls in it as well.
Yeah,
you gotta find your crew, even if like Devo. The best thing about Devo is that they embrace their weirdness.
Yeah.
And I'm at 45 and a half years old. I'm accepting that I'm a unique weird, and that's okay, and that's great.
Yeah.
And
so you're born in Akron.
Born in Akron.
And were your parents, did they stay married?
Yeah, it's a interesting story. My mom became... Yeah, they were married for 28 years, I think, or actually 27. But in the 70s, my mom became born again.
Yeah,
and she was a bus driver in Columbus, Ohio, when we were living in Grove City outside of Columbus. So this is my earliest memories. I was born in '74, but my earliest memories are '77, Star Wars.
Yeah.
I don't really remember before Star Wars, but I think they took me right when it came out. But Mom became born again, and we had gone to a Lutheran church before that. But I like to talk about this in association with Brain Aid, just because Mom was most alive in church, and the music and the speaking in tongues is a separate thing, but the celebratory nature of the music, and I think the best part of organized religion is the congregation, and the community that it it's a new family.
It's a powerfully therapeutic thing to get together in a large group of people and sing.
Totally.
And you've also started this co-ed Athens choir.
Maybe I start too many things. But I need to try to just do great things with each one of them. Yeah, I'm trying to do. I was inspired by the videos of Choir.
I don't know that group.
It's a choir from Toronto. I need to send you videos. I'm surprised you've never heard of Choir.
I haven't.
I think there's exclamation marks, or maybe it's just all caps. Choir. But they sing pop songs, and I think the guy who founded it plays guitar, and then there's also a conductor, but they do a different song a week. And they make a video of it. They've even had David Byrne sing with them.
Oh, that's great.
I think they had Rufus Wainwright sing Hallelujah with them.
Wow.
So I would like to think if the Athens Co-ed Choir can get ourselves together.
Yeah.
We had a conductor. I'm not sure if she's still with us, but getting with bands, getting schedules organized and getting inspiration in sync is hard. But I would like to think that if we could become a good 10, 20 or more people, there's really no number. And when people tell me they can't sing, I'm like, everyone can sing.
Sometimes you just need the cover and guidance of other voices.
Right.
So your mom, you said she was most alive in church. Was she depressed when you were a kid?
Probably. Like I said in my Rabbit Box talk, I always knew that my mom was special, different, troubled. I probably didn't deal with my own mental health issues until after she passed, because I was trying to protect her by not telling her how broken I was as well.
Right.
But I don't know if I mentioned during this conversation. Yeah, she had sexual trauma when she was 5, and that changes a brain that's developing, and
that's young.
Yeah, and it's I don't know. It was, I guess it was a family secret, but we don't know who did it. She thought it was teenagers, but when she was walking home from kindergarten, she even had my father, who's a librarian at the university, she remembered the date. I don't remember any date from the year that I was 5, but she remembered the date, like October something, 1951, and the weather report matched her memory. So that's why she thinks it's probably real. But whether it was real or not, it was to her, and it changed her mental health. And she was diagnosed with multiple personalities in the 80s, but a lot of people were misdiagnosed with that.
Yeah.
And she for a while thought that, and it's kind of like how everybody has different personalities. I'm sitting up straight talking to you. I'd probably be sitting up straighter talking to a police officer.
Yeah.
You're different with your friends. You're different with your family. I think it's kind of like that. She thought a different person raised her kids. A different person earned her master's degree. But I think at the end I was like, no, you did great things. You raised 2 kids. You got a degree. Every person she touched, I think, benefited from their interaction. I like, and that rubbed off on me. I like to think after she died, I'm still working on the grief, but the fact that I am a big part of the ripple effect of her life is what moves me forward.
Right. What do you remember any manifestations of her struggle when you were little?
The main memory, I remember her mania manifesting in the middle of the night. She would get up and play solitaire, and I didn't know that wasn't normal.
Right.
But
all night,
like for hours at night, and now sometimes my sleep patterns are off, and I understand when you can't turn your brain off.
Right.
It's better not to toss and turn. But I think it was frustrating for my father. because the two of them had 2 kids to care for, and
she was going to be tired the next day.
Yeah, totally. And it affected everything. But I mean, it wasn't a nightly occurrence, but I remember it happened fairly regularly enough for it to make an impression on my brain.
Did she seek any kind of treatment?
It's always. I don't remember what what kind of treatment she sought in Ohio, but in Michigan, I'm not even sure exactly what she did, but one of my most painful memories is as a teenager, her collapsing in my arms. I was a teenager, obviously. She was in her 40s. When her therapist told her that he didn't know what he could do for her, that he thought that her problems were too big for him. And I don't know if it was just outside of her expertise. And I can understand I've thought about becoming a therapist, but also everyone's mental health journey is their own. So, but I take comfort in knowing that even after she died in 2012, at the end, she was in a good place.
Yeah. You said she worked her whole life to try to get better.
Yeah. And she just, it's always the next thing.
Right.
Like in my Brain Aid video, I've made a 1-minute Brain Aid video, just called brief Brain Aid videos. I would love for you to make one. Because I think just like a bite-sized 30, 60-second video with direct, concise advice. In that video, I just say, just keep trying the next thing. It might be therapy. It might be medication. It might be lifestyle change.
Right.
It'll probably definitely include lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
It might include all 3, like it does for me.
Right.
But if you don't try something different, and people say, oh, this medicine didn't work at this time. And I'm like, well, it might work at a different time.
Right.
Your biology, your chemistry is always changing. If you're gaining weight, if you're losing weight as you're aging, be easy on yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself. But also, I always say it's such a fine line between being too easy on yourself and being too hard on yourself. You got to Mary Lou Retton on that line, I say.
I was telling somebody the other day, I used to labor under the illusion that I was laid back. And it turns out that I was only laid back about holding myself accountable for my behavior. I was holding everybody else accountable for their behavior, like a drill sergeant. So learning to reverse that relationship was important.
Right.
Do you recall as a child, were there times when you felt like your mom's struggle interfered with her ability to parent? Did she ever fall short as a parent? And I'm not asking this as a way of blaming her, but there's another question that comes after this that you'll understand.
I'm not sure. Like I said, she had a psychology degree, and then later a master's in counseling.
Yeah, but how was she as a mom?
And my father did more of the
parenting.
He kept the bills paid and the house in order, but my mom always made sure the kids were up and ready for school, breakfast, dinner, lunch, whatever. I'm not sure I think she did the best she could.
Right.
And I also say to myself that my dad did the best he could, even when I'm thinking like, oh, my family members are imperfect, and I'm like, of course, I'm imperfect.
Yeah. No, don't misconstrue what I'm asking. I certainly don't want to imply that your parents were good or bad parents. I mean, they're clearly good parents. Here you are, and you're a truly good person. But my question is, did you at some point find yourself in your dating and your marriage life trying to fix the dysfunction in your primary care relationship that you had?
I'm probably always trying to do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
tell me about your marriage. I mean, if you feel like it, that's an awful personal question.
My marriage was 2 broken people trying to become whole by becoming married. My ex-wife had been diagnosed with MS while we were dating, and thankfully my employer at the time let me have a significant other in my insurance, so that helped. But but that brought us closer.
Yeah.
But we were married for 2 years, and then after my layoff and my Crohn's surgery, she couldn't deal with my depression, and I couldn't deal with my depression.
Right.
And the first time she made me go to the hospital, when I confided in her and our therapist that I thought about suicide, I'm not even sure I've ever been suicidal, because I've never taken any action. The last time I went to the hospital and made them keep me, I just couldn't function. I just couldn't get out of bed. But she made me go to the hospital.
Yeah.
And I felt loved when she's like, I can't go to work thinking that you might hurt yourself. But I just wanted to say that, they put me on Prozac, and you got to give it 6 weeks to judge its efficacy, and that didn't fix it. And she was out. She couldn't. It was too much for her, which I can appreciate.
She's dealing with a fresh multiple sclerosis diagnosis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a lot.
She had her own anxiety, and I understand that not everybody's emotional capacity is the same.
One of my best early interviews was with Susie Ulrich from the band Pogo, and she's a MS survivor, and she's was real frank about what the symptoms were like and how it affects her emotional life. It was pretty intense. And
sorry, I just want to interject, and I'm still trying to appreciate, and I need to keep an emotional mood journal, because I also have Crohn's disease.
Right.
And mental health has never been talked about really much with my gastroenterologists, but it's such a major part. Your gut is connected to your brain.
Yeah.
And I wish I had told my doctors that I had depression before I was in my late 30s, because
I know a little about Crohn's disease, but maybe tell me more about like what it is and how it happens.
It's an autoimmune disease. So it's inflammation in my intestines when my immune system thinks that the intestinal lining of my intestines is foreign, so it has to attack it. So it inflames, and over time, the the scar tissue from the inflammation builds up. And the one surgery I've had was in 2012, when I was 38, was when the scar tissue built up so much that there was no more food going down. It was coming out of my mouth. And they had to give me steroids and antibiotics to clear it up. And then eventually they had to take out some inches of intestine. And then it's amazing. They cut out the bad part, sewed it back together like a hose, and I was good to go.
It's just like working on PVC.
Yeah. But if I was in the Middle Ages, I would have been dead.
Yeah, well, you had this dysfunctional childhood that you were mostly shielded from. You said you didn't really find your people, your crew, until you were a college radio DJ. So sounds like you were kind of a quirky, maybe a little lonely kid.
Totally.
And isolation was just part of life.
I wish I had more emotional capacity to make friendships. But I also say that I didn't raise enough red flags. I'm not sure why nobody picked up that I was isolating too much and I wasn't participating in extracurricular activities. I did one play in high school my senior year. But I just say that I didn't raise enough red flags, and I got good enough grades. I got a 2.9, which I like to say is a B-.
Right.
It was good enough to get me into college.
Yeah.
But I definitely wish I was just hurt so much by how the social structure changed when you went to junior high. And I was like, wait, now I have to be mean to some people that are different? Like I just, it didn't make sense to me that people started making fun of outcasts more.
Yeah.
I proudly remind myself, and I tell people sometimes, I've never done anything with the intent of harming someone else or injuring someone else or breaking someone emotionally, much less physically. I've never been in a fight. It's completely foreign to me, and I know I know that part about me is because of my parents, and that's a good thing.
Middle school is just savage.
I don't understand it,
It's awful.
and it's mean girls and mean boys.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not an educator. I got an English degree, and then I pursued secondary education, and then I realized I did not have the command of a classroom. I was too nervous. I did not love teaching English, but
Did you student teach?
I did.
Did you find during your student teaching that you were way too emotionally available to deal with students?
Something like that.
That was me, man. I
Yeah.
did my student teaching and was like, I'm going back to rock and roll. I suck at this.
Yeah, you have to be completely focused on the kids and the topic
Yeah.
and the material, and I still think I have undiagnosed ADD.
Mm-hmm. Same.
It's hard for me to focus on things, but
Yes. Except in extreme bursts.
Right.
Where it's night and day. You breathe it, you eat it, you sleep it, and then that passes and it's time to stare at Reddit.
I can read a book for 15 minutes, like nobody's business.
Yeah.
And I earned an English degree, but I put I put things off, and I wrote my papers the night before. I'm a master procrastinator, but
Yeah.
I'm mostly good. I have to remind myself that I'm mostly good, but
Right.
there's always things to work on. But I just wanted to say that, and I don't know how to fix it, but the educational system and the social system in schools is out of whack, and I know I'm probably preaching to the choir, but my sister homeschools her kids, and I also recently met. We started with Brain Aid. We started an anti-litter campaign. I call it the Athens Litter Rescue Challenge. I like to just joke that we're rescuing the litter and sending it back to its family. But a mom came out with her kid, and she said her kid isn't schooled. He just learns from the world every day. I'm not sure if she has an educational background, but I know that kids in school need to pass their state tests, but I think the state tests need to be, I don't know.
They validate a very narrow set of skills.
Yeah.
And school rewards a very narrow set of skills. You know, I was smart, but I was just washout at school. And I think that's a lot more common story than we get told a lot. And because we're sort of held to this standard of the Prussian model of education, which prepares you to go into an industrialized workspace, you know.
But I think emotional intelligence needs to be taught and retaught and just focused on every day, and just, I mean, and teachers are therapists to a degree.
Yes.
They should be looking after the kids' whole selves. And if a kid raises a red flag in one area, that should be dealt with. It shouldn't just be pushed aside but how are your grades?
Yeah.
But are you getting this?
Most teachers are now, well, all teachers are mandatory reporters, which means if they see signs of abuse, then they have to speak to someone.
Yeah.
And it's sort of baked into the system now, but
I know it can be overwhelming having 30 growing beings.
But there's other red flags that aren't necessarily signs of abuse, but signs of dysfunction. And, you know, the teachers aren't trained to spot those but also, like, imagine having a special ed class and how many of those kids probably need some kind of help. But, like, you can't just go to the guidance counselor every day and say, Benji has oppositional defiant disorder, and I think there's something going on at home. And, you know, Thomas has dissociative disorder, and I think there's something going on at home. There's probably something going on at home that helps these kids sort of end up in special ed, you know?
Right.
But, yeah, we just...
And awkward Stephen who isolates himself is probably less of a priority.
Yeah, if you're not the nail that sticks up, you know, like, if you're not openly defiant or disruptive, then you're not going to be the first priority for dealing with the problem.
Oh, I'm the youngest child too, so I know how that feels.
So you have sisters?
I have an older sister,
yeah,
and I'm the youngest cousin on both sides of my generation.
So you went to the college where your dad worked. It seems like it might have taken a little time for you to kind of find your feet in your community.
Yeah. I say that I'm still a late bloomer,
Right.
And that's okay. It's not failure to launch; it's just a delayed launch, and it's really it's not tragic. But I applied to I filled out an interest slip
Mm-hmm.
for the college radio station when I was a freshman in
Right.
fall of '92, and I didn't get a call, and and I'm still learning this now. I can be nervous when I call somebody and ask them for something,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm more skilled to do it now. But I didn't become a college radio DJ until 3 or 4 years later, when I became friends with someone who had a show there and said, "Oh, you can get a show," and I made a demo tape, and the program director said, "Yeah, we'll put you on a slot right here and have fun."
Did your show have a name?
It's called Transmissions from Steven.
Yeah.
It was based on the Flaming Lips album, Transmissions from the Satellite Heart. Yeah,
That was a very important record to me.
absolutely. It was great.
Especially just the last 20 minutes of it was huge for me.
I got to meet Wayne last year, and that was amazing.
Yeah. What was that experience like?
He was great. Not every musician interacts with fans too much, but I think he jumped on the tour bus right after the show,
Yeah.
and we were outside the door of the Georgia Theater waiting for him
Mm-hmm.
to see if we could meet him. But he just came out and said, "Hey guys, what's up?" And I told him about Brain Aid. I gave him a flyer, and actually they ended up playing the second Hi, How Are You Day concert festival in Austin, Texas this year.
I want to get to Daniel Johnston before the interview's over.
Huge.
But I want to kind of get from your college radio days to your marriage. So
And then back to Brain Aid.
yeah. So you did you got your undergraduate degree in English. You went to get a secondary certification as a teacher, but then bailed out.
Yeah,
of that.
but I did not finish that
Me either.
because student teaching.
What did you do? Like
After that, I worked retail
mm-hmm.
at a store called the Bombay Company, which has since gone under. But they sold furniture this has happened in multiple jobs since. I too often become satisfied and haven't always been working towards something else.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I have something hanging up just to remind myself, always be working towards the next thing.
Right.
And that's not what keeps me alive, but I do tell people that looking forward to things is key. It could be a trip that you're planning or a project that you're working on that you're trying to grow, or some friendships that you see someone later this year or next year, or make plans. Because if you get trapped in depression, at least me, and it still happens. I've been depressed this year, but I've kept pushing myself to organize Brain Aid, but I also need to get my career together. But then it's like, but I want my career to be Brain Aid, and so it's a catch-22.
So you meet your wife.
Yeah.
You're in the second year of your marriage, and she gets diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
Well, that was right before we got married.
And you have your first major bout of depression.
I would say so. Yeah. After my mom died, and since I was unemployed too, I had less purpose. So when I was laid off, I was like, oh, this can help me get to the career that I want. And I wasn't even sure at that point, being still married, and wasn't sure what I wanted to do. But a year later, my wife made the decision to leave, and I didn't. I said matter-of-factly to her, I don't want to be married to someone that doesn't want to be married to me. So
So there was a year where you were married and unemployed?
yeah.
Underemployed or unemployed?
Unemployed.
Yeah.
And I still have problems with being underemployed.
I mean, Athens is shot through with jobs that meet your basic material
Yeah.
needs, but satisfy nothing else in your life.
I'm living right now, but I'm not thriving.
Yeah.
But I will get there. That's the benefit of the medication and the therapy I've received even since I've moved back 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm still optimistic. But when I was debilitatingly depressed in Detroit, like you can't see the sun, you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel when your eyes are closed. I've never really said it like that before, but
Yeah.
the
Detroit's hard.
it is, but it's also fantastic
Yeah, no, I mean, I love the city.
in some ways.
But if you're at all seasonally affected by lack of sunlight,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're the kind of person who reads the news about Flint
Mm-hmm.
and thinks, this is driving me crazy, and someone who is bothered by the empathetic experience of seeing people suffer from poverty or crime,
Totally.
then Detroit's going to beat you down.
It's a cumulative effect of my life.
Yeah.
Because we moved to Metro Detroit when I was 5, but it also made me who I am. Even though my family was in a rock and roll family, I'm glad that I had access to finding on my own Motown, and then as well as the rock and roll that came out
Yeah.
of Ann Arbor, and I don't know. It's imperfect, but
Yeah.
It also helped make me me.
Were you starting to see some improvement in your emotional state before you moved back to Athens, or were you still kind of bottomed out there in Detroit?
It was a reset, but I definitely came back to Athens because I went back to Detroit to be closer to my dad because I lost my mom because she passed away, and it felt like home. But I also, being back in Oakland County, Royal Oak, and then Detroit, it was a lot of familiar settings where I was like, oh, walk down a street. Oh, I was depressed over there. I was depressed over there. Oh, I was the awkward high school kid there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. I was rejected over there. Although I was pretty much just rejected in junior high, and then I stopped trying.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. Because you miss every shot you don't take, right?
Yeah, it sounds like you've internalized some of that rejection, especially as it relates to what happened with your marriage too.
Yeah, and it's not healthy. I'm trying to treat myself like I treat other people, with kindness and empathy, but also encouragement and try the next thing.
Right.
What would my mom do?
Yeah.
Like when I looked down at my tattoo that my mom wrote, "I love you mucho," in a letter. I had that tattooed on my arm.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just said, well, I haven't tried everything. So
Yeah.
keep trying, keep grinding. And I also want to start a hashtag. I don't know if you know how to start a viral hashtag. This is a suicide prevention hashtag. I just wanted to start this hashtag, eternity can wait. Like I think that I will be with, I don't know what the afterlife is like. I don't really like having those discussions.
Yeah. But you never get any less dead.
Yeah.
Never ever.
Well, I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. But
yeah.
I'm like, but life can't get better unless you keep living.
Yeah.
And I like to think that there's a possibility that the afterlife will be amazing, and I'll be with my mom, and I'll be with my ancestors, and I'll be with Jimi Hendrix and Jim Morrison.
Right, sure.
We'll all be hanging out, and that'll be forever. But eternity can wait.
Yeah.
Right now, I want to shake up the world as much as I can, like a snow globe. I definitely think the house is on fire.
Right.
It is a mental health crisis, and I say it's not just about suicide. I said this to someone yesterday, or I say this all the time, that just think of mental health as a 0 to 10 scale, and it can go each direction. But like, let's say the strength of my depression when I checked into the hospital was a 9 or 10. I would say an 8 or 9, because I never actively acted on any suicidal ideation. I just couldn't function.
Right.
So maybe a 9. but I accepted life at a 4 or 5 way too much. That's the strength of depression, but your mental health, let's say your positive mental health, should be more than middle of the road.
Right.
It's not just a problem if you're in the extreme negative. It's like a car. I've had cars die on me,
right,
because I haven't maintained them.
Right.
And good enough is not good. It should not be good enough, because we should all thrive. But we all are. I'm just talking about myself. It's hard to get up every day and do the shit you need to do and shine the star that you are, because of a myriad of things, not just childhood.
Right.
It's everything.
Right.
But at some point in your mid-40s, you get to the point, or I get to the point where I'm just like, fuck it. I need to be as weird as I am. I need to be the freak and the geek that I am, and say things without shame. That I'm sad and awkward sometimes, but I'm also unique and vibrant in a way that nobody else is. I think most of my friends would say Stephen Cramer as an adjective only applies to Stephen Cramer.
Right. Stephen
Ernest Cramer.
Yeah.
There's other Stephen Cramers that are different.
Tell me about circumstances leading up to your hospitalization.
When I went for depression.
Yeah.
Not the Crohn's.
No.
Well, I was living in Detroit in an apartment complex that my friends bought. It was it wasn't insulated well, so it was cold in the winter. Even with the heater on, it was frigid, and that didn't help. And I had worked a little bit. I worked for PBS doing some door-to-door fundraising, but I wasn't thriving, and I was seeing a therapist and a psychiatrist, but I tried different meds, but nothing was working very well. So I went and had dinner with my dad. And my car died. Not that that's a big deal. Cars die all the time.
It's a big deal.
Like I was mentioning. Yeah. And I still don't have a car. But
if you can't get around in winter in Detroit without walking, you're going to have a tough time.
Yeah. When you don't have a car and then you do have a car, it's like night and day. Mm-hmm. But I would take the bus from Detroit to the suburbs, and I met my dad. Well, that day I think I got a ride. But I just said, I'm going to go to the hospital. And the previous times I went to the hospital, they just kept me safe for an evening. Maybe give me a med change.
There had been previous times you went to the hospital?
No. Well, I went when my ex-wife was worried about me. Mm-hmm. That's when they started me on Prozac, which was my first antidepressant. That didn't work. And then in Michigan, lithium didn't work. I forget what else I tried. I said to my psychiatrist therapist there, I think I have a mood disorder. And she was like, duh. But then when my car died, I probably missed an appointment. It can snowball, you miss an appointment, you miss 2 appointments, you run out of refills.
Yeah.
You can't go cold turkey on things.
Right.
Like I think Stephen Brody Stevens, the comedian who recently died by suicide, I think he tried to go cold turkey because I think he thought that his medicines were suffocating his artistic mind, his creativity. But you just learn to navigate through the world it is an altered state. But I like to tell my family, my father's father and his grandfather were pharmacists. So I'm like, we should embrace pharmacology. We should embrace the history of pharmacology, which includes antidepressants, which in the last 100 years is amazing.
Yes.
The progress. My mom once, I think as a social worker, visited a closed down mental institution and she was in a room with padded walls. And of course she was dealing with her own shit, probably for better or worse, but she was just like, thank God for medicine, because it's not perfect, and those side effects are not perfect. My ex-wife had a panic attack once, and she didn't like the side effects of her medicine. But I'm like, yeah, that's why you have to be openly honest with your doctor about your ups and downs, and things change, because things can always be adjusted. And
Yeah.
things can always be better, but only if you proactively manage things and take ownership.
Right.
So I went to the hospital and I said, I don't know how I said it. I'm like, I'm not leaving. So they sent me to this place.
I live here now.
Yeah. So I went to this place in Pontiac called Common Ground, and it kept me alive. I just couldn't function at home, and I wasn't showering, wasn't taking care of myself. They started me on I don't even always remember the name of the antidepressant. Maybe I shouldn't even say it, because not everything works for everyone the same way.
Right.
But this new antidepressant that I hadn't tried before, I remember after I got out, there was just a day when I noticed that, oh wow, it's a sunny day and I want to go for a walk. Whereas before, you can be depressed on a sunny day, and you get doubly depressed that you're sad on a sunny day.
Right.
But the sun being out isn't. You need the sun inside yourself to be shining.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to describe to people who don't have depression. I know you do.
Yeah.
But
oh God. Yeah.
It's but bump.
Yeah.
Night and day.
Right.
When the medicine hits right.
Right.
And I'd like to say it's like a orchestra. I don't know the ins and outs of psychiatry or brain chemistry, but when they have a mood stabilizer mixed with the antidepressant, and then you're just like, oh wow, I feel good. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to go to a concert. I'm going to organize a festival. I really think I should move to Michigan. I take the steps. I get some help from friends financially and my dad, because I'm like, I need help. Like,
you said move to Michigan. You mean leave Michigan?
Or leave Michigan, yeah. Well, I moved back there for 2 years, and I'm like, I'm sorry. I just decided that I'm my best self in Athens.
Right.
And
you came back here.
I came back here.
Yeah.
And here I am.
And you maintain your regimen of meds, and yeah,
it's changed, but I've
your
gone
brain
to
chemistry changed.
Yep, but Nucci's Space has helped me here.
Nucci Space is amazing.
It's a lifesaver.
Yeah.
I got married there. And we should have had our divorce party there. But I say maybe not every city could have a Nucci Space in its own way, but every place needs subsidized mental health care, because people shouldn't have to pay $100 for therapy, even though a therapist and the therapist's office deserves $100 an hour. But there should be other societal ways.
We need to decommodify mental health care.
Yeah, totally.
It needs to be something that isn't just for rich people.
Exactly. And that's why there needs to be subsidies.
Yeah.
Whether it comes from businesses or taxes. Like Nucci Space makes you pay a copay.
Right.
$10 or $20 or $15, I think, for a therapy session.
Yeah.
That keeps you accountable, and that is also good. It shouldn't be free, because when it's free to you, you skip it and you don't take it seriously. But it's still not $100 out of your pocket, because that might affect your food budget.
I think it should be free, but I also understand that impulse to at least like put a nominal dollar value on it, so people will not just blow it off. But
right.
I think that if you're in a position where you can blow off your therapy appointments, then you're not drowning then,
Yeah. But
so you've been back here how many years now?
3 years.
Man, you've been super productive for 3 years. You've been on my radar with BrainFest at least that long.
Brain Aid Fest.
I mean Brain Aid Fest, yeah.
I not to beat myself up, but I think I should have been more productive. But I'm always good at trying to focus on the present, What is, what was, what is wasn't before, what was isn't anymore. That's the best poem I'll ever write, so I'm done writing poetry.
Yeah.
So that just reminds me, anxiety, what's in the past is in the past. Reality is in front of you, and it's a canvas. We can be as weird and creative, and I like to say that creating a concert atmosphere that has speakers that's a unique, it will make an impression on each person, not just the music, but I like to say it's like a Live Aid, Farm Aid concert eventually, for mental health awareness, with that focus, with TED Talk level speakers eventually. I just want to encourage people to introduce bands with a focused, positive mental health message that will encourage people, because I almost think that the words people say in the storytelling part of the festival, and even what musicians say between songs, those things will almost stay with people more than the songs.
Yeah.
I mean, the music is enjoyable and music is life, but just the commonality of learning that, seeing people on stage be brave enough to talk about their hardships and how they're surviving and thriving despite mental health challenges. I just want to say, before my mom died, she spoke about actually her doctor, Dr. Hose in Detroit, and she became my doctor, but she was also a therapist, which is very unique for one person to be both. But Dr. Hose invited my mom to speak to students at Wayne State University, social work students, about stigma, about the stigma of mental illness. And she was so proud of herself for going and speaking. And she even printed an email that a student wrote to Dr. Hose, who was their professor, said, "Thank you to Elaine. Just tell her thank you for telling her story. It helped me understand a little bit more," because everyone's mental health is unique, and that should be prized, not undervalued.
Right.
And I remind people whose parents die all the time that you are part of the ripple effect of their life.
Yeah.
And I take value in being and pride in being a ripple effect of my mom's life. And I can't not think of a single thing that I could ever do more important than picking up the mental health banner that she carried.
Yeah.
And carrying it forward in my own way.
Mm-hmm.
The stigma, I think I say, is cracking in pop culture. People talk about mental health more, but it needs to shatter, because we're not just in a mental health crisis in the middle, we're also in a suicide crisis in the extreme.
Right.
The suicide numbers are the worst they've been since like the 1915.
And that's not factoring in overdose deaths that are
right.
Suicide on the installment plan.
Mm-hmm.
We're the nihilism of where we're at as a society is kind of amazing right now. It's a crisis. I think that part of the stigma is about the inconvenience of mental illness, because in a society where mental health care costs, as you said, $100 to $300 an hour for therapy, and health care costs what it costs, outrageous amounts of money just to get meds, you know?
Yeah. My uncle worked, he was a research pharmacist. Sorry to say this. I just want to say that he worked his entire career. He's retired now, but he never worked on a medicine that made it to market. So I like to tell people, when you're surprised by how much your medicine costs, sometimes, yeah, it can be extreme, but just remember, everybody has to be paid in the pharmaceutical field.
We have enough money.
Yeah, exactly.
As a culture, there's enough money to
America.
pay for healthcare.
America is so filthy rich.
Yeah.
There's no reason for everyone to not have healthcare.
Yeah. This year's Brain Aid starts October 6th.
Yes, or October 6th. And you're going to play with 5-8.
5-8 will play at Henry
And you're
Shots.
also going to be on the panel.
Yep.
which we're going to kick off
Yeah.
at 5 p.m.
I get so
I will
nervous.
be trying to orchestrate that conversation
Yeah.
with some other mental health leaders
I hope I
in our
don't say
community.
anything really dumb or hurtful. I worry about when somebody puts a microphone in front of me and says, well, I mean, and here's my new job is guy with a microphone in front of him. But I respect people's suffering where they're at, but I don't want to dishonor or devalue it or disrespect it. But, well,
I don't think you'll say anything.
I'm just knocking on wood here.
I think everything you say is helpful because it comes from a serving place. You want to help people.
Yeah. Well, we got to lift each other up.
We're going to hug it out after this.
Yeah, of course. No one's going to take care of us but us. Also, Dudes Helping Dudes, ongoing.
Yeah. And I don't know if it'll ever become bigger, but
Right. Well, any
dudes are always welcome to join.
yeah. And also the Athens Litter Rescue Project is ongoing.
That's the first Saturday of every month.
Yeah.
Meet at 9:30 or 10 at City Hall, and we'll split into teams from there. I'm just trying to keep things simple to start.
Sure.
Eventually, I would like it to be each commissioner takes ownership, and they meet in the heart of their district.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that litter isn't a major issue. It's maybe the 100th most important issue. And I also, like I said in my statement to the commission, I value the garbage men and women, but it just could be better, and it depresses me when I see it as a pedestrian. So
Well, and I think also getting everybody together to do a thing that's an unvarnished good for the community is itself an investment in things being better for everybody.
I also said in my statement to the commission that the kids are watching.
Yeah.
Kids notice everything. If you pick up trash, they'll notice.
Yeah.
And I quoted my grandmother who said, "Leave every place cleaner than you found it."
Yeah.
Or as clean as you found it.
Yeah.
Just do what you can and keep doing it. And that should always change. Be your best self every day.
So I usually wind these interviews up with a series of 10 questions. I don't know if you're familiar with the questions, but they're based loosely on the Bernard Pivot questions they end inside the Actor Studio with each week. But these are my own version of those questions. Because this is normally just interviews with musicians. They're sort of musician-centric, but we can find a way to improvise around that.
I love music.
Yeah. If you're ready for that, we can jump in.
Sure.
All right, first question. What is the fondest memory you have of a meal that you've had?
A meal?
Yeah.
Let's just say, actually it's a couple times, but your first meal after you have a colonoscopy is amazing.
Oh yeah.
Because you've had to fast for a day, the whole day before, and then you have to drink the colonoscopy prep, which is not delicious.
Yeah.
Because you got to clean out your system.
Yeah.
And I would just say that probably one of the ones during my marriage where my wife drove me and then we went and got pizza after.
What pizza place? Do you remember?
I think it was Automatic Pizza, maybe, in Normaltown in Athens.
Great pizza.
They have great pizza.
That's a musician-owned and operated business too. Yeah.
Working in the food industry is very noble work because everybody eats.
Yeah, food is a kind of service. Second question, what is the most frightened you've ever been?
Oh, shit. It's about to get real, maybe. I've never been physically accosted, so I would say after my mom died and I got out of surgery, so I was physically fine, but I was with my ex-wife and we were talking to her mom on speakerphone, and it was a nice conversation. And then after we hung up, I realized that I would never talk to my mom like that again, and I sobbed in my wife's arms like I'd never cried before. And I think I was scared of what life would be like without my mom. But now I realize my mom's always with me, and maybe that's just my mind trying to maintain some normalcy and survival mode, but I like to think that she's still with me. But
I think all the work that you're doing to help people who are suffering is a way of keeping your mom with you at all times.
All I want to do is make her proud. But it can still be scary. And I want people to understand that they can overcome whatever frightened moments feel like a prison, but they can break out of those chains.
Yeah. Third question, what is a thing in your life that you've lost that you regret losing more than anything else?
That I've lost. That would have to be my marriage. I do have regrets. I could have been better. I like to say I didn't like depressed Stephen either. I know that it had to be hard on her. But I do think about what might have been. But I do also think that I can still be happy. But the key is, and I remind people whenever they have a relationship hiccup or they're frustrated by romantic issues, your happiness is not inside someone else. It's inside you.
Yeah.
But I like to think that there's an alternate universe where my marriage with Sabrina would have worked out, but it didn't, and that's okay. But I still feel like I lost something, potential.
Tell me about a time you've received an act of kindness from a stranger.
This is also, it sounds like a simple story, but it's kind of profound. After I got out of the hospital in Detroit, I was walking to get groceries, and I stopped to take a photo of this building that it's like a mural, and it has photos of, or drawings of civil rights leaders. So I took a picture of it, and it was snowy. It was late February, and a guy noticed me taking the pictures, and I think he thought I was maybe someone from the suburbs or something, some white guy coming into town taking pictures. He's like, "Hey man, can I get some money?" And I'm like, "Sorry man, I don't have anything." Of course I had a few bucks, but he said, "Really? I don't know. You're not from here. Taking pictures, and you really need to have money if people ask you for money." And I said, I'm only a couple blocks away. And he's like, "But I don't know. You're not from this neighborhood." Even though I was maybe a half a mile away where I was staying. But when he said, you need to have money for people, I said, well, sometimes, or he said, someone might hurt you, someone might shoot you. And I was like, well, sometimes I kind of want to just not exist. And he was like, whoa. He gave me a dime and said, go get 10 pennies so you'll have something if someone else asks you for something. And that was kind of astounding, because he went from kind of being like, hey man, you don't have any money, you need to have some money, have some change for somebody, and then when I told him I was vulnerable and told him that I thought about dying sort of, and maybe that would be the end of me, he was like, no man, here, take a dime, get some pennies, take care of yourself. And that, I think that's kind of profound.
It's also a way of saying be a part of the community.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you have nothing else to give but a penny.
Mm-hmm.
Like, be here with us.
And he gave me 10 pennies.
Yeah, man.
And that was cool. I like to think that and going back to my mom, like she took me to a church. When she was born again, we went to a black church. And I like to think that's partially why I think I'm comfortable with anybody.
Yeah. You were at black church a lot.
When we were living in Ohio.
Yeah.
And it was a raucous church.
Yeah.
When people are speaking in tongues and singing and dancing. And
yeah.
I'd like to think that's a good thing.
Right. So this is a question that I usually ask musicians, what's your favorite place to gig? But I guess you're a huge music fan. What's your favorite place to see music?
I mean, I love every venue in Athens, although I don't know. I've got good and bad memories everywhere now, in Athens and Detroit. It's got to go back to my favorite bar in the world, Flicker. It's just so cozy.
Yep.
And it feels like home. Flicker Theater and Bar in downtown Athens.
Mm-hmm.
It's next to one of the larger venues, the 40 Lot, but Flicker has a Flicker hosted the first Brain Aid shows, some of them, and it just feels so homey, and the people that work there care about the people that walk in the door, and it bleeds into the musical experience.
Yeah.
Where that's the communal experience.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a room with 5 people, or maybe it's a crowded with 50.
At 50, it's packed.
Yeah. And I hope it to be packed on Friday, October 11th, with Robert Schneider's band, Ersey Dolphin, and Scott Spillane will play, and John Fernandez will play, and you'll play with Kimberly and Nuclear Wind Tour.
Yep.
And AJ Griffin, who played with Olivia Tremor Control, will play.
Mm-hmm.
His project's called French Exit. That should be a great E6 night. All the Elephant Sixers should come out.
A lot of Elephant Six bands on that bill.
I think that'll be a magical evening of music and camaraderie.
Visa and income considerations aside, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?
Well, I like to say that I would like to live in a new city every 2 years, and
so what are your top 5 cities then?
I've daydreamed about, and I don't need to have. Yeah, I don't even need to think about living accommodations. I would like to experience living in Seattle, Portland, L.A., San Francisco. Just because I've been out to San Francisco and L.A., but not on a long-term basis. I wonder what that would do to my mental health. I just think the sky is bigger in California, right? And it's so beautiful. Of course, things can be stressful because things are more expensive, but I have to think there's a way for us to get out of the grind and the stress, and we all just need to appreciate and have gratitude for the beauty of the world and each other. And California, even though cost of living aside, I think they take care of each other. I think San Francisco has started to have free mental health care for every citizen of San Francisco, which is amazing. I don't know what that entails exactly.
Yeah.
But that's what every city needs to do.
Yeah.
Just like one thing I want to mention, and we'll talk with Kelly Gertz at the Mental Health in Athens panel. Athens is going to open a mental health crisis center. I don't know where it's going to be, but it'll be a place where I think if people are having suicidal ideation, it'll be a safe place. Right. And I think probably a more specialized place than just going to the ER. I mean, the ER will be the first place you go, but people need a place that has specialized mental health advocates, and say there are things we can do.
There needs to be someone to call besides the police.
Exactly.
If someone is in distress.
Yeah, and our police, some of our police are trained in mental health crisis, but it can always be better. That's what I want to say. What can we do better?
Right.
And that's one thing that I'm happy to see.
So you named 4 cities: Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, L.A. Just give me one more.
Detroit.
Back to the D.
I would like to go to Detroit and New York City, but I would like to be back in Detroit in a different frame of mind. Mm-hmm. I have friends that want to organize a Brain Aid concert, and I just say, let's just start with one concert. Mm-hmm.
I think you could probably get a grant to travel around and do this thing.
That's what I want to do.
You said 2 years in each city, that'd be perfect. You could run the festival for 2 years and then go to the next city.
Well, oh yeah. Well, I want concerts to be happening everywhere all the time.
Yeah, but
with speakers, with information resources.
Right.
But the trick is orchestrating all that. Not just in my head.
Right.
That's what's been almost slightly maddening, because I'm like, I just want to do everything. But I understand Manic Steven doesn't inspire people. Mm-hmm. It's all about, like my friend Ripley, our friend Ripley says, well, you got to have some of the mania. That's where the magic comes from. So, and I'm not all about branding, but I think Brain Aid as a brand, as long as it remains positive and progressive and changing the conversation in our city about mental health, and it doesn't just have to be an annual thing, but at least an annual thing.
Yeah.
It can be done in other cities. Just inspiring people to take time out of their week to plan an event is hard, because I know asking for people to put their time forth towards it is asking a lot, but it will produce a lot and it will save lives.
Yeah.
I just know that. I know that it will change lives. And that's the other thing. I have this weird goal of having everyone see a positive mental health ad every day, either on social media, on the side of a bus, inside like a flagpole magazine.
Mm-hmm.
I just know that it'll have a cumulative effect.
Yeah.
And I wish I could just change the world by screaming. But Nucci Space has agreed. I think they said we can do screaming yoga there. If you just want to yell, scream, let it out.
It's funny. That sounds like the least pleasant thing in the world to me, but I'm also not really into.
I think other people, yeah.
Yeah. People screaming has a lot of connotations for me.
I think I need to just do it into a pillow.
Yeah. Or just find us. I mean, I don't have to be there. You can go to screaming yoga at Nucci's just as long as I get a heads up.
Right.
You know, and I'm not like there trying to figure out if I'm going to buy a compressor pedal or an amplifier. And all of a sudden, 50 people start screaming.
I just need better coping skills by myself.
Do you play music at all?
Not regularly. Well, I want to sing in a choir.
Yeah.
I have regrets from quitting choir in high school because I heard the teacher was mean.
Right.
I've made a couple songs using found sounds, but I never really learned guitar or anything.
Did you have a 4-track or something?
No, I actually, for a song that I recorded on a tape that I released of Candy songs called Candycore, I just used the studio at the radio station to just piece it together, and
yeah.
I wrote some lyrics and did that, but I never. My muse has led me to do different things, like college radio, a zine,
right,
festivals.
Well, the next 2 questions are about instruments, so we'll skip those and go straight to the new question.
My body is my instrument.
Yeah. So, a few weeks ago, I was riding back from a gig late at night with Dan Horowitz from 5/8. He was in the passenger seat, and I saw a light in the sky, and it just baffled me. We were both tired, and it was late, and it was a little cloudy, and there was this enormous blue light, and I was like, I'm not someone who believes in UFOs, but there was a minute there where I was like, I don't know what that is,
mm-hmm.
and maybe I'm about to experience something I hadn't expected.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said to Dan, what do you think that is? And he was like, I don't know. It's kind of weird. And then we realized it was a cell phone tower. But there was a moment where I thought, if I'm going to see a UFO, I'd really like to see it with Dan, because he's the perfect guy for that. So my question to you is, if you were riding along in a car at night and you saw a UFO, who would you hope was in the passenger seat?
I don't know. No, I guess my dad, because my dad was super into alien movies and sci-fi. My dad's, ever since he was a kid, he was into, and I think Close Encounters of, what is it, Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
Yeah.
It was one of his favorite movies. I would like to see my dad interact with a alien babe.
Yeah.
He's single again after his second marriage.
So you're thinking some James T. Kirk action with your dad?
I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Is that an alien?
Captain Kirk was of the Starship Enterprise. He's the one who always had the kind of fling with the green-skinned girl.
Yeah.
And
I would like to go with my dad to like a Star Wars cantina type place.
Yeah.
And see if, hey, maybe our best mate is out there, but maybe she's not exactly our species.
Yeah.
That sounds bad.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking, not earthly animals,
right?
But it would probably be a humanoid. Although I've heard the odds of alien life being human-like, we are fucking miracles.
Yeah,
I think that's my first swear word. But we need to embrace the magic that we are, and that's why we need to stick around and try to be 1% of the magic that Daniel Johnston was.
Yeah.
He stuck around, and he just died yesterday. And I know you wanted to maybe bring him up, but
Yeah.
He's a mental health hero of mine because, like my mom, he kept trying the next thing.
Yeah, he was a big influence on Mike Mantione from 5/8.
Mm-hmm.
We used to sometimes in the middle of a concert break into one Daniel Johnston song or another, like the one about not playing poker with the devil.
Mm-hmm.
And
however your creativity oozes out,
mm-hmm.
you just need to do it.
He just kept, like, originally, I guess Daniel Johnston he had these sort of homemade cassettes.
Mm-hmm.
He was working at McDonald's,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And he would hand off these cassettes to anybody who would take one. And that was like, he was sort of like, what's the band from? Guided by Voices
mm-hmm.
in that way,
mm-hmm.
just constantly making music,
mm-hmm.
whether there was an audience prepared for it or not. I guess when the world caught up with Guided by Voices, there were already 6 or 7 records, like
mm-hmm.
cassette-only releases, and Daniel Johnston was kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah, but Daniel was so... I mean, obviously schizophrenic, I think, and
mm-hmm.
and depression and mania, and that's all magic, but he was so childlike his whole life, kind of like my mom. My mom, part of her was stuck at age 5, and that's not completely bad. It is partially tragic, but one thing my therapist, Tim, once told me, when you're thinking about anyone else, but also when you're thinking about yourself, when you're judging someone harshly, just remember that they are still the innocent child that they once were, full of hope and optimism and potential.
Mm-hmm.
And Daniel, despite his internal battles, and sometimes your internal battles spill out,
mm-hmm.
like I think some of his relationships cracked because of his mania, but he learned to deal with it, and the meds helped him. And I've lost friends from being too manic and too excitable, but that's also who I am, and we're all on a different wavelength.
Yeah,
and I think we just all need to learn to manage our lives, but also remember to just keep reminding people in your life that they matter, and especially reach out to people when you notice someone isn't around anymore as much, even if that's on social media.
Yeah, just check on people.
And it's cliche, but we know somebody right now who's going to die by suicide.
Yeah, and
maybe it's not a foregone conclusion. I need to do a better job of that.
Yeah.
Reaching out to people.
You know what Nick Cave says about cliche, right?
No.
It's an idea that frightens us because it has too much power. So, it may be cliche that we need to reach out and say, hey, man, are you okay? But the fear in that is the responsibility that it's on us, right?
Yeah.
No one's going to look after us but us.
Right. But we say to people, oh, let me know if you need help. But that's the thing about people in a depression crisis. They don't know how to reach out for help, and they're embarrassed to. And I wanted to start this with myself, but maybe I'll do better with myself if other people do it as well. I want to do Call Buds Sunday, CBS. Reach out to a different friend every Sunday.
Yeah.
Say, how you doing? Whether that phone call lasts 5 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was just talking to your friend Ashley, who was here. Men especially have a hard time not just forming relationships, but strengthening relationships.
Yeah.
Those bonds need constantly watered, and you're not weak for saying, hey man, I really need some intimacy, and I want to have that friendship intimacy with you.
Yeah.
But then it's important to just say, how are you doing? And it goes both ways. You need to both care for each other, but we need to reach out to our isolated friends.
I've often said that I don't know what middle-aged men who aren't in a program of recovery like me or in a band like me do for friendships. And it occurred to me the other day as I was sort of digging through all my hunting and fishing stuff and thinking, man, I don't do this anymore. That we used to go do stuff outside with your guy friends. You'd go to hunt camp or Although, man, I've heard some stories from hunt camps that make me realize that they're a place where a lot of pathology just bursts to the surface. A lot of alcoholism and a lot of weird abusive behavior. But like men used to, they used to go do stuff outside. They'd go fish, they'd go hunt, and now we're all in these weird little cubicle lives where we don't interact. We have our family, which is important and valuable, and I love my family more than the breath of my own lungs. But it's important sometimes for me to go to band practice, and it's important for me to call my buddies and occasionally go fishing or whatever. You know, that's a thing that and that time driving to and from that's talking time. You know, a lot of stuff gets worked out on those drives.
And maybe you could pull out. You've been sober for a while. Maybe you could, but we all have guy friends who their main social life is drinking.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully in Athens, drinking, music, and sports. Like I don't look down on sports. I think sports is a great mental vacation.
Yeah.
You watch a match, you root for a team, but I also think tribalism is our downfall.
Yeah.
But it's good to pull people out. It's like we don't have to drink.
Yeah. We
don't have to do something macho. Let's go watch a movie. Let's talk about our dads.
Yeah.
Nice to see you, man. Hug.
Yeah.
I say hugs are a reminder to our bodies that we're not alone.
Yeah.
And I've heard that hugs should last 20 seconds, but we don't do that enough. And I don't do that enough.
Yeah.
They say you need 7 hugs a day to maintain your emotional health. I'm way behind.
Yeah.
But we can all do better. That's all I'm saying.
Last question.
Okay.
If you can imagine a taxi that can go anywhere in time or space.
A taxi?
A taxi.
Not an Uber? Not a Lyft?
We're going to go with taxi just because I have some issues with the whole disruption economy.
Right.
But, yeah. And the culture at Uber is not something that I really want to honor.
I'm going to imagine that Danny DeVito is my taxi driver.
Yeah. And Danny DeVito can take you anywhere in your life, past or future. And you say, hey, man, take me home to the driver. Where's a taxi going to take you?
Take me to a period of my life that I want to change?
Take you home. Where is home?
Home is hugging my mom.
Yeah.
Whether I was a young boy and she helped me when I scraped my knee or had emotional needs, or I just wish I had been a less awkward teenager, but she still knew I loved her, and I just wish I got more hugs. But
I got to tell you something.
Home is my mom's arms.
Yeah. Somebody once told me there was a moment one time that passed without anyone ever marking it or noticing it, but there was a time when your mother picked you up and held you as a child for the last time and put you down and never picked you up again. And it wasn't a planned thing, you know. It's just that you got too big.
The next day she was like, you're old enough to get up yourself.
You know, she never even thought about it, you know. Just like maybe you became independent enough that you didn't need to be picked up anymore. But I do strength work now. I do a zillion push-ups just because I'm going to keep picking my daughter up.
Yeah.
Just as long as I can, you know. Because
you'll always hug her.
Yeah. But I mean, pick her up.
Yeah.
Support her weight, you know, physically.
Yeah.
So she feels protected.
And my best memories with my dad are when I probably fell asleep in the back seat and he carried me to bed.
Yeah.
Probably, maybe he put on my footsie pajamas.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that I had a nuclear family, I guess.
Yeah.
It wasn't perfect, but life isn't.
Yeah.
But that's where the magic is, because you can zigzag and make it the best you can make it.
Yeah. I had a radioactive family. A lot of fallout.
Yeah.
Not really the nuclear family, but
nobody. Yeah. I one last thing. These are my personal cliches. I say it often, but everybody does what they think is the right thing in that moment, even people that hurt you.
Yeah.
Even criminals today are stealing something or hurting someone because that's how they think they need to, things that they need to do to survive. So we just need to convince the people that are doing destructive things that life does not have to be that way, that we can all be positive. I just want us to get to the point where robots do most of the work. Some people are robot repairmen, and then people just do charity work and art. And I'm all about automation. Maybe even the robots put together Brain Aid Fest. There's an algorithm that says, hey, this band should play here, and it sends a request, and that band says yes, and the money's figured out, and the sponsorship is figured out by robots, and Paul McCartney's still alive, and he agrees to do it. Paul McCartney says, shout out to R2D2 for setting me up on this gig. So
if somebody wants to sponsor a Brain Aid Fest, how do they get in touch with you?
They can email me at brainaidfest@gmail.com. I'm sending out some emails today because we're going to try to do the posters next week or the following week. I'm focusing on local sponsors. We'll put your logo on the poster. We'll also mention you at the festival. Thank you on stage at the festival. My goal is to raise enough money to have an ad in Flagpole every week.
Yeah.
For the next year. Just a positive small ad. The smallest ad is just a couple inches big.
Flagpole is the alternative weekly magazine here in Athens, Georgia. Dudes Helping Dudes Facebook page still up and running every day. I saw there was somebody on there today asking for relationship advice. I'm going to chime in later.
I don't always read them anymore because I sometimes I don't know. I need to because I need to be the helper because I'm lost too much in my head with my problems.
So also,
Brain Aid Fest will be October 6th to 12.
You got a Twitter account?
I'm the only maniac crazy enough to throw a week-long festival. Last year it was 2 days.
Yeah.
The first year it was 4 days, and it alternated between Little Kings and Flickr the first 2 days or 3 days. But all the social media is Brain Aid Fest.
Okay. At Brain Aid Fest on Twitter. At Brain Aid Fest
on Twitter.
Instagram.
On Instagram.
Awesome.
The Facebook page is Brain Aid Fest. And I love you, Patrick.
I love you too. Thanks for doing this.
This hug is going to be awesome. Can't wait.
Your mom would be so proud of you.
You ain't seen nothing yet. Thank you.
Thanks. Man, that guy, what a character. What an asset he is to the Athens music community. He's just out there hustling all the time. Got a new idea just about every day. I'll put links to the Dudes Helping Dudes Facebook page and also Brain Aid Fest and his anti-litter campaign and anything else I can think of in the show notes. Thanks for listening. Thanks for helping to spread the word. Not everybody listens all the way through the outro, so I'm going to give those of you who do a little special secret surprise. Coffee cups are almost done. They'll say Loud Guitars Save Lives, and they'll have the new logo on the other side. They'll be out here probably the next 2 weeks, so, surprise. If you're struggling with depression or anxiety and you're having thoughts of self-harm, you can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or go to suicidepreventionlifeline.org. That's 24/7. It's free. It's confidential. You can call them anytime. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-8255. If you're a trans person struggling with anxiety, depression, or dysphoria and you want to talk to a peer, you can call the Trans Lifeline's Peer Support Line, 1-877-565-8860, or go to translifeline.org. If you need to reach the show, it's crashandride at protonmail.com. That's CRASHANDRIDE at protonmail.com. That email is encrypted. It's private. Nobody reads it but me. I will not violate your anonymity unless you give me express permission. So feel free to reach out. In the meantime, take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. Ask for help if you need it. Go see live music. Support your favorite band. And remember, loud guitars save lives.